Hi, fasters. Welcome to this episode of Old, Fat, and Fasting. I'm Lori. That's my sister, Krista. We are old, we are fat, and we are fasting, and we both fast for weight loss and for health.
Today, we're continuing on the topic of making fasting as simple as it can be, especially when you first start. It really does not have to be complicated. So last time we talked about fasting by definition is just going a certain amount of time without food.
Yeah, don't eat. That's fasting.
Right. But there are things that you can have even during your fasting window that if you're fasting for weight loss, let me put that caveat on it. If you're fasting for weight loss, there are things you can have during your fasting window that will not break your fast.
You used a big word.
What word was that?
Caveat.
Oh, so if you're fasting for autophagy, you can't have these things. If you're fasting for autophagy, it's coffee, tea, water, basically. Yeah. But if you're fasting for weight loss, there are things that you can have. So we're going to talk about a few of those things today. The first one is probably the most popular thing you're going to hear about, I feel like. People talk about things they have while they're fasting, and there's a reason for that. That's bone broth. And bone broth is so popular with people who are fasting because it is so healthy for you. It is literally a broth you make from bones.
Who knew?
Something I thought about the other day. This kind of reminds me of, there was some book when we were kids about rock soup or stone soup or something. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
I don't know why when I was thinking about bone broth the other day, it made me think of that book. But I mean, it literally is. We're going to put links to a couple of recipes below this, but I mean, recipes, because basically all you do, recently I learned that you're supposed to, or you can roast the bones before, which I've never done, but I'm going to try because I bet that gives them tons of flavor.
Yeah.
You can use bones from chickens, which is what I usually do. Or you can use beef bones, which sometimes I see in the meat case at the grocery store, but you can also just ask the butcher for them. You can even use fish bones if you want to. And you put them in either your pot on top of the stove or in your slow cooker or in your Instant Pot, whatever. And one of the links we're going to give you will have recipes for each one of those.
Yep.
But you just put the bones in there. And something else I read recently that I think Lori does, but I've never done, but I'm going to try, is like if it's chicken bones, kind of crunch them down because it breaks them open a little bit.
Yep.
Helps it get all that stuff out. So you cover it with water. You can also, if you want to, add some carrots and onions and stuff. I know this has been a point of discussion between Lori and I.
Well, and I want to use a big word. That's called a mise en place.
What? So I thought a mise en place was having all your stuff ready ahead of time. So like everything.
You're right. Oh my gosh, I'm going to remove that. That does have a name though. Mirepoix. Mirepoix. It's your mirepoix.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh, I got to use two words. Mirepoix, celery, carrots, and onions, I think.
Yes, that's
mirepoix.
True. Mirepoix. That's true. So you can add, I wouldn't cut them up little, I don't think, but like you can cut some peppers in half or some celery in half and put it in there with it, cover it with water and let it go, basically. And it just, now before you drink it, you're not going to eat those vegetables. You don't want to chew while you're fasting. So after it cooks, you strain it and then you can drink the broth. And the reason that's so good for you is there's a lot of nutrition in those bones. And there's collagen, which is very healing for your gut. And there's lots of minerals in those bones. So it's a good way to, get some nutrition into your body. Not that you need to add nutrition when you're fasting, but it's a really healthy way of, consuming something while you're fasting. Now, I also will say that something I've read is that you shouldn't be thinking about drinking cup after cup of bone broth. Sip on a cup of it.
Yeah.
You know, because you do still want to keep your consumption of anything as low as possible. So, but I love sipping on bone broth when I'm fasting, especially if you add a little salt to it and sip on it. I love any kind of broth though. And
Well,
if
you
you
and I
put
are
those
both soup
vegetables,
junkies.
I know, seriously, it can be 90 degrees outside and I'll have a cup of soup. I could eat it every day.
Yep.
But also if you put those vegetables in there, it's going to pull out vitamins from those vegetables too. So
Right.
as long as you're not chewing the vegetables,
Strain it,
and
strain it, strain it.
you're having you know, sips of it and not, I think what I read is think sips, not gulps.
Yeah.
So you sip on it through the day.
And I'm trying to think, I want to say it's 20 calories. There's some rule, I'll put it up on here, that you do not break your fast as long as you keep it under a certain number of calories.
I think it's 50.
50? Okay.
We'll look it up and make sure, but I think it's 50 and a certain number of carbs too, I think.
Yeah.
But we'll look.
Hmm.
I don't know that off the top of my head, but we'll look that up.
And another broth you can have, and I'll put the link below, is what my family calls garbage soup.
Yummy.
Right. Sounds delicious, but it's vegetable broth. So it's everything you cut off of vegetables and throw away. Instead of throwing it away, put it in a Ziploc bag, throw it in your freezer. Once that, and it's the big Ziploc bags.
Yeah.
Once that's full, put that in I put mine in the Instant Pot, but you could use a slow cooker or your stove top. And
Yeah.
you'll be amazed at how good it smells when you pull out the onions and the garlic skins and the butts of the celery you throw away or the core of cabbage. So you just put that in there, cover it with water and let it go. And that is a fantastic thing to sip on. And I learned that from a YouTuber called French Guy Cooking. When he did a video that he made that when he couldn't go to the store, when everything was on lockdown.
Oh wow.
And he said, I can't go get it. So I'm going to make my own. He said, you'll be surprised how good it smells when you open that Ziploc bag. And it does. It smells absolutely gourmet. It's amazing. It's really, really good.
Well, and another, I guess, non-health benefit of fasting also that you and I have talked about, I don't know if we have in a video, but we have talked about is your grocery bill. And how much it drops. And bone broth and veggie broth are both good examples of that too. You're using stuff you usually would just put in the garbage.
Yeah. Well, and so far as the chicken broth goes, we did a video on that too, of all I get out of a rotisserie chicken.
Yeah.
So I put the whole rotisserie chicken in the Instant Pot and run that through a broth cycle, and I have homemade chicken broth. Then I pull it all off and make chicken salad out of it, and then I put the bones back in and I make chicken bone broth. So out of $5 of a rotisserie chicken, I just got 3 separate dishes out of it.
Right. And when you're only eating one meal a day, that lasts you a long time.
Just a long time.
It's one of the things that I learned when I started fasting again was like there were a few times that I bought too much at the grocery and ended up throwing some stuff out, because
that's our habit, overbuy.
Right.
Yeah. And not only we were saying in that same discussion, not only do you save money on your grocery bill, but you hardly ever run your dishwasher. So your water bill is going to go down and you're not buying dishwasher tablets all the time.
Right.
It's amazing. It's wonderful.
Yeah. That's
Lots
true.
of money to be saved on fasting.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you're not buying sodas anymore. Well, that comes up a few cards for me. A little guilty, but if you're doing it right, you're not buying sodas anymore. But
right.
Your grocery bill is going to go down.
Yeah.
In addition to the garbage soup, and this is wonderful for me, is pickle juice. You can have pickle juice when you're fasting. When I was little, I remember Dad had to set a rule that I would leave 2 pickles in the jar so that Mom would have pickles to make tuna salad or something, because I would eat them until I was sick. Yes, I love pickles. So that's something you can have is pickle juice. And I actually had a bag of those, dilly bites.
Yeah.
Yesterday is how I broke my fast, and I drank the juice right out of the, I was getting ready to say right out of the pickle, right out of the bowl that I poured the packet into.
She sucked it out of the pickle.
I would not, yeah, take a bite out of the pickle, and get the juice out. So, yep, pickle juice, you can have pickle juice. Just make sure it doesn't have added sugar. And I don't have one up here, so I'll pop up a picture right now. Pickle shots that you can buy. I get them at the
Oh, yeah.
grocery store, but you can also get them on Amazon. But it's one of those, at least from my area, it's one of those things that's actually cheaper in the store than it is on Amazon. So check your local grocery store. And it varies. I have found them in the pharmacy. I have found them with sports drinks, juice section. So search around your store for them. But they're good. And Steve doesn't like pickles, but when we fast for more than 24 hours, he's like, this tastes very, very good. So any flavor change is good. So even if you don't like pickles, once you haven't eaten anything for 24 hours, you will probably like the pickle juice.
Yeah. And then there are some things that you can either add to your water or just drink by themselves. Two things you can add to your water is either lime or lemon juice. But this is another one of those things you don't want to go overboard on. So you want to put a squeeze of lemon juice in your water or a squeeze of lime juice. One, because they do have some sugar in them. And two, because it's one of those things I've mentioned before that if I have something that tastes sweet, it tends to trigger my craving for something really sugary. Even if what I'm eating is something healthy but sweet, it makes me crave something, I always say an Oreo. And any kind of fruit juice does that for some people.
Oh my goodness.
So it might be something that you have to play with for yourself and see what works. It may or may not trigger a craving for you. And that's another thing with a lot of the things that you read about and you learn about with fasting is, there are certain things there are a lot of things that impact different people different ways, basically. So there are some people who can drink that lemon in their water just fine. And then there are others who it's going to make them want sugary soda or something. So just play with it and see.
Can we have cucumber water?
I would think so.
I would too.
I've kind of had that on my list of stuff to try because it sounds great.
I have made cucumber water and it is delicious. And I don't see why we couldn't have that with fasting.
I don't either. I mean, cucumbers are
sugar.
mostly water for one.
I mean, you can have pickle juice. Pickles are made from cucumbers.
That's true. And cucumbers aren't sweet.
Just tastes fresh.
Yeah.
I'll look it up and post it on here. Yes or no.
Okay. And then another thing you can do is apple cider vinegar. This is one I don't think Lori or I either one have tried. We were talking yesterday that maybe we'll try capsules.
You can buy capsules.
The recommendation is that if you do, you can either add it to your water or some people just drink it straight. I know. They say that you get past that flavor, but I worry about my teeth because I have teeth issues anyway. And I worry about my reflux with that, although I've heard some people say it helps their reflux. So I don't know. But apple cider vinegar is a mild appetite suppressant. It affects I wrote this down. It mildly decreases your glucose levels. So the recommendation usually is if you're going to drink either straight apple cider vinegar or drink it in water, drink it with a straw because it really is hard on your teeth. So just make sure you do that.
Yep.
And then the third thing is, and Lori's probably going to make a face at this one too.
No, I'm not. I have my cheat sheet, so I know what it is, and I love the food. So.
Oh, I didn't think you did. Okay,
oh my goodness, yes.
It's sauerkraut juice. And I love sauerkraut.
I love sauerkraut.
And the other thing about sauerkraut is it's good for your gut. But this is sauerkraut juice. We're not telling you to eat sauerkraut while you're fasting.
Don't do that. Don't do that.
But you could, I guess you could sip sauerkraut juice or you could add it to your water or whatever. I haven't tried this one yet either.
We could put it in our bone broth or our garbage soup.
Well, that's true. You probably wouldn't want to do a lot of it.
No.
But you could put a couple tablespoons or something, I guess. That's true.
Yeah. Hey.
And I don't think I've told you this, but I'm going to try making my own sauerkraut.
Oh, pickling cabbage. Is that what it would be?
I looked it up and it's super easy. It's fermented cabbage.
Yeah.
So I looked up a recipe and I don't remember what all you put in with it, but you basically you chop up the cabbage, you put it in a jar, and you have to put like another jar on top of it to hold the cabbage down because you want to make sure that it's submerged in the liquid.
Okay.
And then you just let it go, I think for like a week or something.
Is there a liquid in it?
I think so. Yeah, because it said to make sure the cabbage is completely submerged in the liquid.
Do you remember what the liquid is?
I don't, but I'll look it up. And maybe we'll put a link to a sauerkraut recipe below this too. But I've really been trying to work on my gut health lately. So I thought that one thing I can do is every time I do eat, I can have a little sauerkraut. Because any kind of fermented food is good for your gut. And I started back on my probiotics recently too.
I take probiotics every morning.
Yeah. So I'm going to really start really working on my gut health.
Your gut's important, sissy.
It is very important. I mean, there's even science now that says that, a lot of diseases that you wouldn't associate with your gut really do start in your gut. So, yeah, it's extremely important.
Yeah, there's even magazines. I think there's one called Gut Health.
Yeah, I think you gave me a couple of them actually. Yeah, it's in my pile of magazines I need to read.
Right? We share.
We do.
Magazines are $14 now.
I know, it's crazy. And then when you open it up, I'm like, half of it's ads, but you still have to charge me $14.
Right? Right.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So sharing magazines is saving our pocketbook and also keeping stuff from being thrown away. Reduce, reuse, recycle.
There you go.
Something else you can enjoy when you're fasting is unsweet tea and unsweet coffee and bullet coffee. And the bullet coffee recipe that I've used in the past is, and this sounds really nasty, folks, but it's actually, it tastes like something you would get at Starbucks. It's so good. 2 cups of coffee, 2 tablespoons of coconut oil or MCT oil. I had to stop for a second because I wrote down 2 tablespoons grass butt. 2 tablespoons grass butt. 2 tablespoons of grass-fed butter or ghee. 1 tablespoon of heavy cream and 1 teaspoon of vanilla. And when I make it, we have one of those bullet blenders and we just throw it all in there. It sounds terrible. Like who would think of putting butter in their coffee or grass butt in their coffee? But it is so good. I remember the first time I made it for 3, well, now it's just 2 of us, but I made it for the 3 of us. And we were all like,
yeah,
it was wonderful. I mean, if a 20-year-old kid likes coffee with grass-fed butter in it, then it's good because they're kind of picky. But and with tea, I always cut off my caffeine by 2 o'clock because it just seems like it messes with my sleep if I go later than that. So you could do regular decaf tea or chamomile tea or any kind of flavored tea, something that doesn't have, sugar added to it. And I think you said you get jugs of unsweet tea someplace.
Yeah, Kroger has big gallon jugs, like a milk jug full of its decaf and unsweet tea. And I drink a lot of that. I've got some sitting here right now.
A whole jug?
No. Although I won't deny that last night we were down to the bottom of one and I did drink it right out of the jug.
Yeah, it tastes better that way. So sticking with the tea thing and it being unsweet, everybody but me needs to avoid artificial sweetener. I mean, it's terrible. It's unhealthy. It has all kinds of chemicals in it that are so bad for you. But I will admit, because this channel is all about being transparent, I drink caffeine-free Diet Pepsi and I drink Fruit Punch Gatorade Zero. So if I do drink tea, I will either put lemon in it because I don't know, I just
Yeah.
don't like plain tea, although I've tapering off on things and am adjusting to the flavors. But if you're going to sweeten your tea, use monk fruit, which is really good. But try to avoid the fake sweeteners. I'm going to try to work on it. I'm not going to say I'm working on it. I'm going to try to think about working on it.
Yeah.
I was such a soda girl. I miss ginger ale like crazy. But yeah, so do what I say, not what I do.
And there's other things you can put in your tea too. Tea is so flexible, I feel like, because you can put some lemon in it. And I think I don't know if you still do, you were putting like fresh mint in your tea also. And I bet that was delicious.
It was.
It sounds really good.
And it's real easy to grow.
Yeah.
I would.
You should show us some of the stuff you've grown sometime.
It'll have to wait until next year. It's the end of the season, so everything is dying off, and mint is one of those things. But yeah, you can get mint in your produce department. But yeah, I would just take a branch of that and put it in the pot when I would boil my tea bags, and then I would just let it sit for a little while. But yeah, that was really good.
I bet.
It was good stuff. Good stuff.
And I wanted to go back to the Bulletproof Coffee for a minute. It was something that I didn't try until recently. I did try it while you were on vacation, and my first experience wasn't so good with it, but not because I didn't enjoy drinking it, but because, let's say, gut issues. It made me a little nauseous.
Oh.
And it gave me a little intestinal trouble. And I looked up why that could happen. And apparently it's not really common. I'm not saying that it's going to happen to everybody when they try it, but some people,
what's in there.
It's because of the oil, and that some people, their gut doesn't do so good with all that oil. So the suggestion is to start out with a lower amount and slowly build up. So what I did was so the first time I had it, I didn't have any MCT oil then. So I did, I think, 2 tablespoons of coconut oil and however much of ghee.
2 tablespoons of each for 2 cups of coffee.
Okay. So what I did, I got some MCT oil. There's a lot of benefits. We're going to do a whole episode on Bulletproof Coffee because I had heard that MCT oil was great for fasting and for keto and for your health in general, but I didn't really know why. And I've read up on it lately, and I'm a big fan now. So what I did was I started with just a teaspoon of MCT oil.
Oh,
to see how I did with that. So I went from 2 tablespoons of coconut oil to 1 teaspoon of MCT oil. And I did that for a week, and I did fine with that. And then I started back on my probiotic. You did that
with the butter?
No, just the MCT oil.
Okay.
And I wanted to start back on my probiotic. And so there have been times in the past when I have started on probiotics and my gut hasn't been healthy. It hasn't been happy for a few days. And that's a good sign because it's healing things, but it's a difficult couple of days. So I was like, well, I don't want to increase the MCT oil and start the probiotic at the same time because I want to know which one triggers any problem I might end up having. So I went back on my probiotic for a couple of days, kept my MCT oil at 1 teaspoon. And I did fine. I had no trouble. So now what I've been doing just for, I think, 2 days is I'm doing 1.5 teaspoons of MCT oil and my probiotic. And I've been doing fine with that too. So I'll probably what I plan to do is increase the MCT oil by 1/2 teaspoon or so.
And no
until
butter.
I get up with a couple of tablespoons and then start adding the butter.
Okay.
And, so if I have trouble at some point, I can stay at that for a few days until I adjust to it. And then,
Are you using, I have to flip back through here. Are you using all of the other ingredients other than butter, coffee, oil, cream, and vanilla?
no, I'm just doing the MCT oil.
Just the MCT oil.
Yeah.
Okay. Seems like I put cinnamon in ours too.
Yeah. And that's another thing we'll talk about a little when we do our Bullet Coffee episode is like the original Bulletproof Coffee recipe just had
Bulletproof
coffee.
and bullet.
Yeah. Had just coffee, MCT oil, and ghee. But after, like with everything, after it became so popular and everybody loved it, there's been a whole bunch of different recipes come out that still are fine for a fast, but it's got more stuff in it than that. I think one was vanilla too. And I thought, well, that sounds awesome.
Mine had vanilla and cinnamon. I didn't write down cinnamon, but I'm pretty sure I put cinnamon in it.
Yeah. So we'll talk about Bulletproof Coffee more sometime.
Yeah, we will.
The last thing that we wanted to mention today is, like we talked about in the beginning, starting with what's comfortable for you right now. 12 hours is usually a good starting point for most people. Just 2 hours before bed, don't eat. 2 hours after you get up in the morning, don't eat.
Mm-hmm.
You're up to 12 hours. And then just slowly increase from there. Like I'm kind of like what I'm doing with my Bulletproof Coffee, right? I'm adding a little bit more and seeing how I do, and adding a little bit more and see how I do. Do the same kind of thing with your fasting. And once you're able to get up to 16 hours, that's all it takes for your body to go into autophagy.
Autophagy?
I know, which we will talk much more about probably in multiple videos, because it's an amazing benefit from fasting. And it's basically, well, it literally means self-eating.
Yes.
Which sounds cannibalistic and disgusting and horrible, but what it really is it's this process your body goes through where it cleans out all the old cells, all the excess stuff your body doesn't need, which also means that it does some healing.
Yep.
Gets rid of inflammation, gets rid of unhealthy tissue. So your body starts going into that phase at just 16 hours. So, you don't have to do a huge fast of 72 hours to get those benefits. So start small, work your way up, and know that any length of fast is healthy.
Yep.
And you don't even have to go a huge amount of time to get the health benefits too.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to use my fancy word again. One caveat on that.
Show off.
One condition on that, which is the rules for autophagy are stricter. We'll talk about that in our other videos too. You can't have all this stuff that we just talked about if you want to have autophagy. But anyway, but you can work yourself. That's another thing I feel like, to work yourself up to over time.
For autophagy, you can just have black coffee, black tea, and water.
Yep. Yeah.
No bone broth.
So, but there's no rush to get there.
No.
Right. So just do what works for you now and slowly increase.
I think that's
Yeah.
Good advice. Good advice.
And I think that's all we wanted to talk about this time.
We could go on forever.
I know. We Lori and I got online this morning to
start recording at 8:15.
Right. So I think we actually got on at 8 o'clock this morning, but we didn't actually start recording anything until 10.
Like 2 hours. Yeah.
So yeah, we get chatty.
A little bit.
Which
is how we actually come up with a lot of the topics for future.
That's true. We actually had a subject we were talking about while we were chatting this morning that we were like, we should have this discussion on camera. Yeah.
But we stopped talking right then and there.
Yeah. So,
all right. That does
I think it's a wrap.
It is a wrap.
All right.
So we will see everybody, or everybody will hear us next episode, next video. We have podcasts now. Krista, plug where we are on podcasts. Where can you find us?
We are on We're on Stitcher. We're on Google Podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or you can listen to them also on our website.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you can find us everywhere, which is www.oldfatfasting.com.
Right.
So you can look at us or you can listen to us. And some days it's probably easier to listen to us than it is to look at us.
Right. Was it? I heard somebody say, "I have a face for radio."
Yes, that was. I remember somebody that was. I love old game shows on an old What's My Line. Fred, somebody.
Mhm.
He had a face for radio. Yeah. So, all right, everybody, that'll wrap us up for this episode, and we wish you all a very happy fasting.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye.